Know me. So my name's Tyler White. Let's see. I've been a state and fed cop. I'm a recruiter for the Special Forces. I have a company that I teach survival with, YouTube videos, do a bunch of stuff. I've been to northern Canada mid-February. I've been to the jungle. I've been to the Middle East. I've been to deserts and done survival, either taught or taken survival classes in those locations. I fly back east and teach stuff. Canada, Mexico, Colombia, things. So that way you can kind of trust the information I'm going to give you, right? The military, we call that the motivator statement. It's the why should I listen to this potato? Well, because I know a little bit, right? So I have an hour and then we're going to switch, correct? Nobody?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to switch at 9, all right? So having said this, I want this to be a class, not a speech, right? Because everyone here is interested in learning something specific, or at least vaguely have an idea of what you want to gain from this class. And I won't know what that is unless you ask me. Okay? So, having said that, whenever you're doing critical analysis of a topic or conversation, you have to define your terms first, right? We don't say that this is green. Some of you are going to claim that it's white. We're all both going to be correct, but talking about two different things, right? So, what is a 72-hour kit? Anybody? It's in the label. That's the cheap part.
It's something to get you through for 72 hours.
Through what?
Through a disaster,
Like what? There's going to be a pattern here. Flood.
fire,
Okay.
Earthquake.
So how? Come on in. Have a seat. There's a sheet that's getting passed. Go ahead.
Sometimes you need to leave quickly, you
Oh,
don't
yeah.
need to grab and go.
Correct. Now we've kind of split the tree right here, right? One of them is survive in shelter in place. The other one is bug out. It's not wrong, but there's a reason I'm letting you go down the logic trail and chase the rabbits, because we need to understand these things before we can have a conversation about it, right? So she said flood. She said fire, right? Fire you want to leave, unless you're in a fireproof building. Flood, you want to get higher, you kind of want to leave, unless you don't have to, right? You always kind of want to shelter in place if you can. Bug out, you want to go somewhere else, but where? Where are you going to go? I always like to say grandma's house. It's that in that non-ambiguous other location. You know, it's my bug out location, my friend's house in Texas. It's grandma's house. We're going to grandma's house, right? So again, what are 72-hour kits? What are we looking to accomplish with a 72-hour kit? Where are we going to keep them? What are they used for? Are we talking about on person, in a car, in a house? Someone narrow me down a little bit further.
mine would be in person, that you would carry with you to a evacuation center.
So I would start out by calling that EDC, and then I would call it a mobile kit or an emergency kit. This is a great answer to your problem right now. The military calls this a field hospital. Okay? But am I going to carry it every day? No. It looks weird. Right?
Is what it feels like.
So what other uses do we have 72-hour kits for?
Something you put in your car,
Put in your car. Why?
because you're usually around your car.
Yeah. Doing what?
Driving to and from work.
And I also want to back up a little bit. Why 72 hours? Why not 73? No, why not 24, 48, or 152? Where did we come up with the number of 72?
From what I've heard, it's that is how long it would take government agencies to get in to help you if there was
Having
an
worked for a government agency multiple times, it takes way longer. But you're right, that's where it came from.
I thought it came from Red Cross saying they can't get to people in a disaster any sooner than, 72 hours.
Most of the time, but not always. Sometimes it takes 4 hours, sometimes it takes 15 minutes, sometimes it takes 10 hours, sometimes you'll be 10 and 3, so you need to survive for 10, right? Do you guys see why I'm deconstructing the myth of 72-hour kits? Right? We had to have a line in the sand and something to call it. We had to have a rule, so it's called the 72-hour kit. And the justification for that was, oh, well, if you can figure it out for 72 hours, most of the time we can get there. Well, what if it takes 73? What if it takes 80? What if it takes 10 days? Right? So I'm going to restructure your concepts of 72-hour kits by just teaching you risk mitigation and what you need to survive indefinitely in whatever situation you're in so that you can just do that instead. It's not wrong, right? 72 hours aren't wrong, but that's grade school. Let's go to like some middle school. Maybe we can hit some of that high school level. And then when someone says 72-hour kits, you're like, I don't even need to look at that. I got this, right? And in the process, you'll make your own 72-hour kit without thinking, because once you learn to box, kickboxing is easier, right? Okay, so 72-hour kits, like every single kit, should be risk mitigation for survival. What is survival? It's really easy.
Food, water,
Back up, even less than that. What are you doing? What's the goal?
staying alive.
Staying alive, or don't die, right? She says staying alive. I'm like, staying alive, staying alive. That's my CPR song. So, survivals don't die, okay? So what should the next logical question be? If I'm trying not to die, what is,
How comfortable do you want to be?
how comfortable are you? That's the second logical question. What's the first logical question? Well, that's like the fifth logical question. The first logical question is, what is going to kill me? Right? Okay, so we all walk out in our underwear into the snow. What's going to kill you first? The looks. Then, the cold is going to kill you. Okay? So, food is correct, but you're not going to worry about that for like 4 weeks, 40 days, depending on fat content, water. You know, I like to call it my storage tank. Right? So, let me give you a couple of simple rules. For those of you that want to write things down, this is the thing you want to write down. Okay? You need these things: fire, water, shelter, food, communication, medical, and the ability to replenish all that stuff indefinitely. Not necessarily in that order. Your order will change on your environment. Do I need fire? Like, am I going to freeze to death in the Colombian jungle? No, not even at 2 o'clock in the morning. You might get a little bit of the shivers when it drops down to 90. Okay? Same thing in the Rekistan Desert in southern Afghanistan. Do I need shelter? Yeah, but it's because the wind stings. It's not because it's getting cold. It was 136 during the day, so when it drops down to 98, you feel cold, but you're not going to freeze to death. Right? So, we understand the things we need. Did everyone get them written down? Do you need me to repeat them again? Fire, water, shelter, food, communication, medical, the ability to replenish it. I'm going to add, if you're in an austere environment, you need security. Okay? So those are the things that you need. Now the question is, in what order? Well, the answer is that depends, but that doesn't give you any valuable tools. Like, what are you going to do with that depends? You're going to do nothing with that, right? So it depends on what we call the rule of threes. My variation of that, because I was a soldier and a cop and all that other fun stuff, you got 3 seconds in a gunfight without security. Okay? It's good to understand. Don't go where gunfights happen, or if you do, bring your pistol with you, right? You got 3 minutes without air. This one didn't make sense to me for the longest time. Well, if you're a pilot in Alaska and your plane goes down in the lake, are you worried about food? No, you only got 3 minutes before you're going to suffocate. So whatever you're got on you, remember we talked about everyday carry? Whatever you can grab and go, that's what you got. That's what you're going to use. Understanding that helps you to do proper prior planning to prevent poor performance in advance, so that when your plane does go down, you know, well, if I'm not wearing it and if I can't grab it really quick, I don't get to use it, especially if my plane goes down in the lake. Maybe I can pull the fuselage apart and rip that sleeping bag out of the back. Maybe not. I also need a way to, got my knife on me, it's in here, need a way to cut my way out of the side of that plane. So there's some things you need to wear on your person all the time, so that if you get cold, you can just make a quick fire, right? If you get lost, you can just call somebody. I put this over here so it won't vibrate all the time. So there are some things you want to EDC, right? Some stuff you want to carry. And we want to do this in layers, right? On my person, I want fire, water, shelter, food, communication. So here's a pretty good representative example of what I'm carrying every day. That's about it right there, okay? I can friction fire with this. I can make phone calls with this. I can fire, water, shelter, food with this alone if I have batteries for it. There's here's my way to extend it a month or 2 or 3, right? There's a time limit. I can go with communication for 3 months. I'm sorry, for a month-ish. I'm sorry? It's a battery.
No, but how can you make the fire, water and whatnot with your phone?
I'd call it. Be like, hey, can you bring that warm helicopter and pick me up? And that way I don't have to, right? Or I can make a friction fire. Or I can pull my wallet out that has a Fresnel lens and use the sunlight in it, right? Now, there's not a perfect answer to everything. It's about risk mitigation, not risk prevention, right? Okay. So, let me back up here because I chase squirrels too much. 3 seconds without security, 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter. Shelter is defined by a lot of things. Is this shelter? In this nice warm room, this might be overkill shelter, right? And this is shelter, right? If I had some food, I would pull that up and say, this is shelter. Why is food shelter?
Keeps your body warmer.
Yeah.
Gives you energy.
It's
Right.
literally fire that's in slow motion inside of your blood that's keeping you warm, right? So it's that slow motion burn that makes you warm. It's my vehicle shelter
Yes.
when the engine's running.
No,
Who's ever spent the night in a car that doesn't have an engine running?
better than outside in the wind.
Sometimes.
Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Yes.
It was awful.
It's horrible, right? What if you had this bag in the back of your car?
Oh, yeah.
All I got is Gore-Tex outer layers, old military puff bag suits. It's like wearing, this is an extra coat. This is basically like wearing a sleeping bag. Grab that guy real quick. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Would that have mitigated the risk of freezing yourself tonight in the car when you spend the time in the car? Right? Who's ever seen a 72-hour kit that's got that in it? What's more important, Band-Aids and like a Snickers and some water, or that coat? And why is that more important? Because you're going to freeze to death way before you get hungry, right? Your kids are going to get cranky. That's why you bring the Snickers, not because they're going to starve to death, because you don't want them to complain, right? So 3 hours without shelter in inclement weather. You can go indefinitely without shelter in the Colombian jungle. You're going to get really cranky because the mosquitoes are going to eat you. You can do the same thing in the desert. You're going to die because you run out of water and you dehydrate like a prune. So the place will change what becomes important, right? So the next level is 3 days without water, and this is a guideline. I go way longer in the Colombian jungle without water than I can in the desert. Because, one, there's water everywhere. You drink out of the vines. I can drink out of the water and worry about liver flukes a month from now when I get survived, right? When I get rescued. Survived, that's the word of the day. My brain's not awake yet. So, okay, we're at 3 weeks. And then 3 months, 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, and 3 months without companionship. Because eventually you're going to get really bored and go kind of nuts and want to go home, right? The whole goal is to get home and eat tacos. Right? I'm stealing that from my friend Justin. So, where are we at here? Having said all of this, let's deep dive some of these different topics. Let's talk about things in layers, because I have some of the stuff here, and then I want to dig into questions with people. You guys cool with that?
Sure.
Okay, so what are the things that I need to just stay alive indefinitely? That's my first list.
Shelter. Is first.
It was
Fire.
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 Fire, water, shelter, food, those things. So let's break down fire for just a second. What is fire? You gave me multiple examples. Fire, floods, bugging out, right? So we're all using fire right now in two ways. What are those 2 ways?
When you have a fire coming down the hill towards your house, you wanna grab.
You want to avoid it, but fire's the problem there.
Yeah,
But we need fire. So I want to expound my definition of what it is so that you guys understand.
The furnace
Yeah.
that's in the building,
There's a fire there.
and then our body's keeping us.
There's the other fire, right? So understanding that, we can leverage what we have available. If I'm in my car on the gas right now, I got 1 furnace left, right? So in that case, my 72-hour kit's going to benefit from what?
Food.
Hand warmers, and kind of stick those things on your kidneys, make you less annoying, right? But not warm. So what do I want to put in a 72-hour kit for fire if I can't have actual fire? Clothing, okay? That's a no-brainer. The easy, non-expensive variant of that is a sleeping bag. Enough sleeping bags for the people in your car. Yeah, that takes up some space. But when you drive to grandma's house, let me grab that jacket real quick, and then let's think real quick. I don't know, we're gonna pass around. Which one? Still play with it. Let's think real quick about how fast things can go sideways. There's a book written by Gavin Becker called The Gift of Fear. And it basically talks about listening to fear so that you can risk mitigate. His example, he used a young mother in Provo, and I think it was a real example, who gets a phone call. She's stressed out. She's got kids. Kids drive you crazy. I love them, but they're like sleep succubuses. They'll steal your sleep, right? And then use it all up at night when you're trying to go to bed. So having said that, she's stressed out. She's got things going on. And she gets this phone call. Grandma's died, or grandma's got a heart attack. She's in Provo. She's like, okay, I got to get all these little heathens in the car right now. Get your socks. Where's your whoopee? Grab these things. They all forget this. They get in the car. They get out the road. Oh, I forgot to fill gas up. Who's done that, right? If you don't raise your hand, you're lying. So she gets in the car. She's driving down south. Now, in the home state, she's got shelter. She's got fire, water, security, communication. She's got all the things that she needs in her house. She's left all that stuff because of a situation. It could have been a fire. It could have been a flood. But in this case, it was just like grandma's had a heart attack in St. George and you come down. Dad's at work, wherever he's at, don't know, doesn't matter. She's driving south. She runs out of gas, I don't know, right before Cedar. Now, young woman with kids in a minivan on the side of the road, I don't know, let's say it's at 11 o'clock at night. What happened to her risk mitigation? Gotta yell louder, I got artillery ears.
Went way high.
Went high, went up. Not because of not because she's a bad person, not because she made bad decisions. She did normal things. But if we do an after-action review of her event, what can we say, hey, what may have been a better thing to do? Right? We're here talking about 72-hour kits. Okay, let's say she had a 72-hour kit. I like to call it a 10-day kit. She got a 10-day kit. She's going to live in that van for 10 days. Her stress level drops, her mitigation level drops. Or 72-hour kits, if she's got this number in her head like 72 hours and then I'm dead. It's not true, but the stuff starts dropping down, right? So based on the rule of threes, 3 seconds without security, minutes without air, hours without shelter, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food, and 3 months without companionship, what could she have done to mitigate the first inevitable risk? Let's pretend like it's this time of year.
Sleeping bags.
Sleeping bag. Blankets for the kids, right? If you've got kids and you want to do a go bag for the kids, do a go box. That go box, write this stuff down. This is the important stuff again. No, everyone wants handouts. I'm like, I'll just tell you what to write down when you need it. Okay, the go box is going to have Lickies, Chewies, snacks, and Yum Yums for the kids. And it's going to have a note on there to remind you in your stressed and frazzled state, grab Jackson's Whoopee. Make sure everybody's got socks. Grab an extra battery for your phone. Grab an extra cable for your phone. Grab medications. Grab all the things you think you're going to need to go to grandma. Oh, and remember to get gas in the van before you leave Springville. Right? So just very basic pieces of information. So you go, oh, checklist. Boom, 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 boom. Then when you're in a fight, flight, posture, submit kind of scenario, you're just like, I got a checklist. I can do this. And then practice it once, right? So, all right, we're going to play this little game. It's going to be get in the van and go to grandma's house. What do you need to get? These 3 things. What do you get? Those 3 things. Go get them, run, get them, grab them, get in the van, and then just drive to grandma's house because it's Easter and you're going home or whatever, right? So now you've got the box. The box can contain the things that you need immediately. Tupperware, stick that thing up on the top, whatever, and then rotate it out seasonally. This is not as big of an issue, though it's kind of nice still to have in the summer as it is kind of a requirement from death in the wintertime. Okay? So once you've done that for the kids, do a variation for yourself. And then I'm going to go down this rabbit hole on layers. Remind me to talk about New York and 9/11 next so that I don't get too distracted.
I was just gonna make a quick comment for
Mhm.
anybody who's like, I don't even know where to start on my checklist. In your guys' packets that you received earlier, in September, there are some little beginners to get you started on like an evacuation, what you need. If you have 5 minutes before you evacuate, what you need to grab. If you have 15 minutes, half an hour, an hour. So that's something, it's not gonna have everything that you need, and everybody's circumstances are gonna vary, but it's something to look at and get your mind going to then make your lists.
We want to give you the skeleton. You can put your own meat on it. Right? Is that not a better thing than me to say, you need 7 Band-Aids. 2 of them are SpongeBob kneecap Band-Aids. Three things to drink. Right? Because who's ever grabbed a 72-hour kit from Walmart? It's all trash. Right? It's all just like fluff and junk to get you to buy. How many 72-hour kits ever have you seen that have something to keep you warm? And what's the first thing that you run into when your car goes out?
Cold.
Dang, I'm cold. Sure wish I had a sleeping bag. Well, maybe that should have been the first thing that you put in your 72-hour kit. 3 days from now, we can worry about I need a drink of water. Or we can just like eat the snow and drink out of the river. Because 7 days from now, if I get sick from the river, I can have some antibiotics. But at least I didn't die. Right? Because it's all about risk mitigation. Some questions?
I don't know if it's just my own experience and if I'm wrong in this, but I know, I used to wear a woolen coat, and I noticed that even in the summer, when it was really hot outside, I didn't feel hot. So I'd say keeping a coat with you at all times, because if you get broke down in the desert, because to me, it kept my body heat inside, so I wasn't losing my moisture.
So it's an insulator against heat
Yeah.
or cold.
Yeah.
When I was in Afghanistan, we wore big, heavy clothes with some cotton on the inside so that we could sweat into it and make a microclimate that would breathe, and then off gas. Also, when it's 120 degrees, you walk out and the sun immediately starts to burn your skin, so you want to shield from it. Fortunately, we don't really get that hot. And it was funny when I come back to Springville from Afghanistan, everybody's like, it's so hot, and I'm like, 98 degrees is amazing. Right? Because it felt great because I had basically been living and running in a sauna for months. Okay, so I forgot where I was going.
9/11.
Layer kits, and let's talk about 911, then we'll talk about 9/11, then we'll talk about layer kits. Okay, so I always like to point to examples that happened and say, what could we have done better? And after action review in the military is, what did we do? I'm sorry, it's what were we supposed to do? What actually happened? Where were the fails? And then always ending with, what can we do better so that no one complains that they got made fun of? So, 9/11, what was supposed to happen? Well, it wasn't supposed to happen. What did happen? It happened. And then people wearing the clothes that they've got on didn't get to ride the subway or the taxis because everything was destroyed, and got to walk for 5, 10, 15, 20 miles for the first time since high school. So knowing that's a possibility, what kind of a everyday kit can you integrate into your system that gives you the ability to go home? Let's think about that. I got the answer for that in my own mind, but let's think about, you got a suit and tie and some flat shoes, you're now going to go walk to, I don't know, Provo.
Some hiking boots or some comfortable shoes to walk in.
Yes, this time of year, coat again.
Yeah.
New York, a pair of socks and some running shoes would have gone a long way. There was women that had to take their shoes off and walk barefoot because evidently stilettos are not for running, or so I've been told, right? So the basic, just a little bit of forethought of, if something happens at work, what am I gonna do? Well, I'm gonna go home. What if I can't drive? I have an electrical unicycle. It's lots of fun. I go like 50 miles. I've used it all over the place. It would be really simple to throw that in the trunk, throw an electric bike in the trunk, and then even fat lazy me that hasn't run since this summer, but I'm gonna start doing it again because I got a PT test in March, can get home without a lot of effort, right? That's a simple solution. Okay, now I'm gonna bug out with my little electric whatever device in my jacket. I'm gonna be like, hey, have fun with your disaster. All right, so just a little bit of forethought. If this, then that, will tell you what you need for your kit, because you've already got your structure: fire, water, shelter, food, communication, medical, the ability to resupply indefinitely, and security when needed. You've already got your rule of threes: 3 seconds without security, minutes without air, hours without shelter. I always get stumped right here. Days without water, weeks without food, and months without companionship. So you know everything you know to build your own kits, whether it's 5 days, 72 hours, or whatever. Okay? So let me move into layering. That is heavier than it looks, and I'm evidently kind of weak. Yesterday was my birthday, so I like to joke about I'm getting old. Yesterday. Not like until yesterday. So we're going to talk about layering, right? What's the pros and cons of what I'm wearing? First, I look like a Christmas tree. I know, it's okay, it wasn't intentional. But secondarily, if I got to walk home, I got mountaineering boots on. They're actually really comfortable, right? Am I telling you to wear mountaineering boots? No. Can I pick on people? You're going to have a hard time walking home.
I know.
You'll be okay. You can just run home, but your ankles are going to get cold.
Look at these. These are perfect.
Those are decent. I would probably here, let's put it on close to what I've got. So, what's our one takeaway from 9/11? Socks and shoes.
Yeah.
How hard is it to leave an old pair of running shoes and a big fat hairy piece of wool socks in my car forever? And I don't care if it's midsummer or midwinter, I can put wool socks down and running shoes and I can hoof it for 20 miles and just get there when I get there. I'm going to be annoyed and cranky and into Snickers, but...
One of the first things they've told us in Japan is they have earthquakes all the time. Always keep a pair of slippers right where you step out of bed. Why?
Glass.
Exactly.
Glass.
Yep, glass.
Broken glass everywhere.
The other thing in Japan, and I picked this up from doing after action reviews of California's accidents, is so it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the building goes down, and you're now in a dark room. All right, well, have a flashlight. Okay, everybody grab your phone out real quick. This device, a lot of survivalists like to mock, but you all carry it, you all have it, you all know how to use it, you're all going to pay attention to it, right? There you go. And let's be honest, I use that the majority of the time if I'm like running the garage. I'm like, yesterday my daughter had a old lady day at school and needed a cane. And I was like in a hurry and trying to get her off to school. She's like, yeah, because I grabbed her kids in the morning. And she returns hours at night. It's a fair exchange. So I need to find this cane, and I'm like in a hurry, and I don't have time to run over and grab my flashlight, whip that thing out, and actually grab my watch. Went like this, turned it on, slapped it over, went, okay, there it is. Grabbed the little cane, ran out, she made it there on time. So think about the things that you can carry at the lowest level that fulfill the needs of walking home, almost had it, making friction fire, making survival traps. I want to run down the primitive rabbit hole, but let me finish this and running back to the primitive rabbit hole for just a second, okay? The things that I've got on should be able to fulfill the majority of the needs that I have. I jokingly call this my survival vest, right? Because most of survival is, can you sit down, take a nap, be warm, and drink a tea? If you can, you're going to be fine, right? If this makes me warm, great. If this makes me warm, great. If this makes me warm, great. There's trees out there, and there's snow right there. If I put them in this thing, yes, it's plastic, I can still melt the snow because the water will off-gas to keep the plastic from melting. There's better things to use. The point is, I can sit down comfortably, drink a tea, and wait for my rescue, right? Okay, primitive. Let's go down that route. So we got a bunch of really cool, amazing tools. Oh, we'll go back to layering, and then we'll come back to primitive. Layering, okay, and I know I'm super ADD. This is my base layer. This is the most simple layer. Pocket knife, keys, a wallet. For some of you, it's medication. I got some ADD meds right here, so I'll keep those in my pocket, but when I walk, they go clink, 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 so I took them out. For others, maybe it's glasses, maybe it's batteries for my hearing aids, maybe it's medication for asthma or like diabetes. I don't care. Something you want to have on you on the regular basis. I'll take my hat off before I go to sleep. I'll stick all my shenanigans in there, right? And then in the morning, I'm not going to forget it. It's right there in my hat. I'll just reload my pants, my pocket. I'm a military soldier, so I've always got a hat of some sort. I'll put it back on. There's my base level stuff. Don't have to think about it. Even as a cop, there was 2 days in my career I forgot my pistol. It's like the biggest, epic, most fail. But how many days have you carried keys? How many times have you forgot your keys? It happens. Same thing, I put my belt on, I'm in a hurry to get my stuff. I'm like, I got everything I got. And I would have this check, and it was keys, pocket knife, gun, wallet, badge, ammunition. Because everything else kind of didn't really matter. But I would do my little mantra, keys, pocket knife, gun, wallet, badge, ammunition. The one day I didn't do it, I was like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. I had to have my wife bring my little safe to me and got my pistol out and did it. So the point is, you gotta have a rhythm of something for your base level stuff because it's gonna become habit and then you're gonna fail at it. The next level up is an EDC. We talked about an EDC a minute ago, right? Or everyday carry. I don't care what you do. There's no right or wrong, but there is a certain point where you're like, you don't need that much junk, leave it home, right? I have an EDC bag that I like to use. 1, because it's tactical, and 2, because it doesn't look tactical, and 3, because it was really good to hold diapers. So my little bag, again, I'm not preaching like, oh, buy my tactical tailor bag. I don't really care. But have something that works, that doesn't look and scream, steal me, and you can put your stuff in it. So my career has been military, law enforcement, those type of things. I was EMT, I did that kind of stuff, and survival-related tasks. So I'm going to want to have tools for those items, right? So if there was an active shooting, or because I'm at high schools all the time, I'm at malls all the time, I'm at events and displays, and I have training to deal with it. But I also have the knowledge of how to deal with the aftermath. So I have kits in here that can deal with that. I don't have my pistol in here, I did it on purpose. I've got ammunition and a flashlight. I've got a medical kit. I threw extra crap in here today that I don't normally carry, so when I pull this out, don't be like, oh wow, he carries a lot of stuff every day. No, I don't carry that much stuff. I have a medical kit that is a tourniquet, sucking chest wounds, stuff for bullets. That's really all that is. Because I can suck on Band-Aids, put some duct tape, deal with it, right? Kid kits are gonna be more along the lines of that bag and less along the lines of hole-stopping blood stoppers. I've got 2 pocket knives because I like them. I'll usually almost always have a knife like this on me all the time because it's a super useful tool. And when I teach stuff, I end up making things, and you can make just about anything you want out of wood, and except for in the stand, there's wood everywhere, right? We talked about communication. Clearly, my cell phone is the best primary communicator, right? So, secondary and tertiary communicators. There's no reason why everyone in this room can't get a ham radio. Takes about 4 hours of study on a Saturday. You go to BYU the first, I want to say Saturday of the month. You take a question that's like 30 questions out of a 300 pool. You study on hamstudy.org, write that down. hamstudy.org.com's Canada, make sure you do .org. And now you're a ham radio operator. So if this thing craps the bed because some potato head shoots the transformers and now the box doesn't work and your cell phone can't connect, this thing is autonomous. It will always work as long as there's someone else on the other line. There's always some old dude in his basement playing with the ham radio, or somebody else there on 145.62 and the repeater 147.62 with a negative 600 offset. If you're not a ham radio, that doesn't make sense. But 145.62 is the national 2-meter call all. There's almost always someone on that frequency.
Years ago, my husband was part of the churches, had a ham, I don't wanna know if it was
Big
ham.
club.
Well, no, they practiced. They got together and practiced. Does the
We
church?
still do that.
The church still
Yeah.
has that.
The church does it. Local ham radio operators do it. UARC, Utah Amateur Radio Association, I think is what it stands for. UARC. Write that down. These are your local old dudes that are your Elmers that can teach you how to do this stuff. You can turn this, I can turn this thing on. It's on 14652 right now. I can change it over to memory mode and hit the repeater right there. I can push a couple buttons and be talking to people in the Philippines. Little bit of education. Once you've done it once or twice, you're like, that's not hard at all. And I spent $30 on this radio. You hear it beat the crap out of it. The battery's loose on the inside. The point is, it's $14 to get in, $30 to have it, and you're simple. Okay? So, communication. This is a satellite texting device. I use it when I teach people in the desert. It connects to an app. I push the button. It gives me two things.
Where did you find your ham radio at?
I just bought it on eBay. It's called a Baofeng UV5R Plus. You don't have to get that model. Just get something for $30.
They're on Amazon also.
Yeah, Amazon. Just Google it. Right. There's
Last
no
ham
local-
radios I knew were big.
So those are HF rigs. I can get into that, but that's like another hour of conversation. Let's talk super quick about. Moved my apps around. Now I can't find them. I use this a lot because when I go to places that I can't talk to people down in Escalante in the canyons. I'll go just get over the backside of this mountain. I can't talk to people. I'll just text my wife, be like, hey, here's where I'm at, and the text sends a message with the GPS location. All she has to do, literally, here's a message to her. If she clicks on that button, there's the place I sent it. That's by my house, right? So every time I send a text, this cost me $11 a month. It was like a couple $100 to set it up. And I want to save like 20 text messages a month for free. Anything after that's 40 cents a message. I use 5, 10 a month. When I go take people for a week on the desert, I might use like 20. But that 1 month, I'll up my plan to the $20 plan. And then I have indefinite tracking, so I can turn it on, and it literally is like a little Homer beacon. And if we all just stop communicating because of flash flood, they'll be like, well, that's where the bodies are at, right? At a minimum. This is some better technology. This is super redundant technology. And this is what everybody has, right? Okay. Flashlight, wallet. I just brought this as an example. It's the one I used in Afghanistan. All I really need to know is where's the base at. I need to make my way that direction. Outside of that, nothing else matters, right? There was a more complicated one that I used. This one in 2008, I uploaded what I like to call the Afghan goat trails because they had no Brigham Young planning in the streets. They're just like, the goat's going that way, let's put a road there. And just the most twisted, wound up crazy stuff. This is how I figured out my way around those types of places. The next level would be a larger kit, or the next level would be something bigger, right? This is kind of overkill. I showed you options, not necessarily what you need. Like, I would probably only put wallet, keys, medical, glasses, battery charger, cell phone, maybe my text device, and my knife. The rest of the stuff can stay out. I don't really care about it. And that's plenty overkill for any kind of trip. Now, if I'm that lady, dude, kids, going to grandma's house, out of cell phone coverage, cool, I'll just drop a text real quick. Hey, I'm here, can you come meet me, tow truck with the whatever, problem solved, right? So it's all about risk mitigation. You need fire, water, shelter, food, security, communications, ability to replenish. Fire, water, shelter, I don't have any food, but it's in my truck. Communications, the ability to replenish. It just has a repeating theme, right? Are my solutions going to be your solutions? No. Okay, so she told me, which is good, that I got 10 minutes. She wants me to wrap it up a little early, which is okay. So, I want you to ask questions. I want you to put your own kit in your mind before you walk away while you're standing here and have the ability to talk to me. I want you to come up and put your fingers on my stuff and touch it and mess with it and play with it, but don't cut your stuff on the knife. And give you a chance to ask me anything you've got cooking in your brain. What about kids? What about, I had questions like special needs kids without a vehicle. Okay, well, they have trailers that you use to pack meat out that have a single wheel. They're great for pulling a kid. Is that the ideal situation? No, but I can put a full human adult in that with that big wheel, and I can hike to the top of the Uintas. It's going to suck. I'm going to get sweaty, but I still solved the problem.
What's that called?
So it's just a meat packing kit. It's a waist attachable wheelbarrow that's backwards with a wheel on it that you put meat in. They have versions of it that are top loadable, and there's 2 handles, and they're an electric motor with a giant wheel. You can drive them right up over the top of tree stumps and stuff. And if they're going to pack 150 pounds of meat, you're going to pack a kid just fine,
Yeah.
right? That's not ideal, but if you do have that concern, there's your solution.
This isn't a question, but on Xfinity, they have a series you can look up and watch called Alone, where their survivalists get taken to this island off of Washington, and they have the last one standing gets
I
$500,000.
probably know a third of the people on that show. I know the consultant that runs the backside of it. They've asked me to be on it twice. If you guys want to talk about that offline, we can have a conversation about that too.
Well, I'm just saying it.
That's a great example, but it's also,
That gives you good ideas on what to do if you're.
the only problem with it is it's all primitive and they're stuck in one location, right?
Yeah.
There's some knowledge. Oh, I didn't really cover primitive. Let me run down that real quick. How did your ancestors live in that crap without heating, AC, all this type of stuff?
Uncomfortable.
But they did it.
They dug a hole in the ground and put an earth roof over top.
It's one of the solutions they have, because we call that a biomass shelter. It's not necessarily biological mass, but it's a mass shelter, right? Because when I burn the trees and throw all that long wave radiation into the dirt around it, when my fire burns out, I don't have to get up and turn the fire back on until it's time to pee anyway, right? So they had some solutions. They used wool.
Yeah.
They used friction fire. They used flint and steel. So there's a bunch of primitive technology, which just means first technology. It doesn't mean less. It just means this is the best we had at the time that works. It is valuable for you to learn how they did that, because a flip of one switch and you're back to the 1800s just like that. So if we look at Bosnia and Herzegovina and Croatia during the 90s when the siege happened and the Chechens did all their shenanigans, what happened? Well, there's some articles. A guy named Selko writes articles. That's his pen name. One of the cities went under siege for almost a year. The people that didn't get out in the beginning, they were ripping up floorboards. They immediately ran out of lighters. There was one guy that had a jug of lighter fuel that he would refill in exchange for food and all sorts of stuff. He was living like a king because he just had a jug of lighter fuel, because everything that makes you warm has to be burned. Everything to cook food has to be burnt. Everything to sanitize, to wash has to be warmed up, especially in the middle of the winter. So maybe it's a good idea to learn how to do friction fire. Maybe it's a good idea to learn how to do flint and steel, because you're busting a little piece of steel off and heating a piece of charcoal. Maybe it's a good idea to learn how to make more charcoal, right? So learn all of these primitive skills, not necessarily because they're the best ideas, but because they're way more reliable than this thing that will inevitably run out of fuel, or if I push on it, run out of fuel in my pocket. That's why I have plethora, right? And these, I have better ones, but these are the ones we went up. I'm going to teach a survival class next in a couple weeks. We went up to my property and did some stuff the other day, so my good ones got given away and I put these trash ones in here. But that's besides the point. Okay, so I ran down the rabbit hole of primitive. Are we cutting it?
It's close.
Thanks, I'll be here all week. Just kidding. Ask, come up here, ask questions, look at stuff, do comments.
I just
Good.
want to know what kind of coat that was you said.
Yeah, where do you get
This
these-
one?
Where do you get
This
that
is,
stuff
we
out
call
of?
these marshmallow suits. I got this from the Special Forces unit because we had extras. You don't have to use a marshmallow suit. Just go to an Army Navy surplus store, get something that's thick, or get those military 3-layer sleeping bags with the Gore-Tex shell on the outside. I used 2 of those, one on the bottom and one on the top, and slept in the back of my Toyota Sequoia at truck stops in negative 30 degrees in northern Canada. Slept like a bug in a rug. And have a mattress. If you don't insulate your body from whatever's underneath you, whether it's the heat from the road when I was in Texas in that car, or it was the cold from the outside when I was in northern Canada in that car, you need to have something insulate, because when you lay down on it, you'll crush your insulation. So these are cool. You don't have to have this. The coat you got on is cool. You just want it for your legs and your head and everything else too.
What is your opinion of like the
I love 'em.
emergency blanket?
Sorry. Emergency blankets are horrible. They reflect heat and they make a sweaty swamp nasty something. Their only value, in my opinion, and I hate them, is to put on the back of a shelter so the light from the fire will reflect you. They're great if you just ran a marathon and you're kind of chilly. They're going to kill you at 2 o'clock in the morning if you wrap up inside of them and sleep on them anyway. There's no insulation value. They are a good tool to add to something else that works, but alone they suck. Go sleep in one. This summer, if you get any sleep because of the noisy crinkles, you'll break up freezing at 2 o'clock in the morning because you're sweating because there's no evaporative. I know this because I did it. This isn't like, oh, that looks like it's bad. I tried this and it sucks. It's horrible. Okay, go ahead.
What does your food look like and how much do you have in your car?
So I don't have a lot of food in my car because I can.
You probably don't.
Like, you can, MREs are great, keep them out of the sunlight. Water's important, do that as well. You got security, air, shelter, water. We're 3 days deep. We're already past the 72-hour limit. You don't need food or water for 72 hours. But if you're going to put food and water in, which you should because you don't want kids to scream at you, Snickers, high caloric, lots of fat, think a stick of butter, the more the better. Okay, those like powdery carbohydrate bars, they're horrible. Go eat one tonight and say, do I want this? Does this make me happy? When you say no, go buy freaking Butterfinger, Snickers, something, right? And get a box of them. They're not that expensive. Throw that thing in your car, right? Because it's a lot of fat, it's a lot of fuel, it's condensed, it's got a lot of sugar, it'll make your kids happy, and it will let their bodies be warm. Back in the day when I was living on a ranch in Idaho, we would eat a stick of butter before we went out and chainsaw stuff in the middle of the winter because it was fuel and we'd burn it all off. Okay, other hands.
Couple points. We've already been trained to respond. One, how do you parent? Pretty much like your parents parented, unless you go out of your way to change. Two, I taught in high school for 30 years, and my partner and I did a robots team. We were at a Marriott competition, 5 stories up, wintertime, New York, and the fire alarm was off. Okay, now our kids have all been trained to leave the building in a fire alarm. Everybody here has probably been trained to do that. But they bolt out of their rooms like they did at school, thoughtlessly. They're now locked out of their rooms in their jammies in the middle of winter, and you gotta leave the freaking building. They were some really unhappy campers because they're not thinking outside the box other than what they were trained at school to do.
So the way the military deals with that is we do fear inoculation, right? Drill sergeants are yelling at us, people are shooting machine guns over our heads, there's no way we can hit with the machine gun because there's wire and we have to step through the wire to get up there, and if we started to move they'd stop shooting. But I know what the sound of bullets sound like when I go over my head. I know what it feels like to be so adrenaline dumped that I just want to crash. So now when I get into a situation like that, I'm like, okay, let's go to work. Instead of, right? So if you want to do something like this, be good at something like this, you got to practice it. If you want to know if crinkly blankets suck, you got to spend the night in one. Right? So if you are just making a plan and putting a band-aid on it and say, I'll deal with this when the bad stuff happens, you've already planned to fail. You have already planned to fail. Go home today, turn your power off, and just see what happens by tomorrow morning. If you haven't broken your pipes, you're not prepared yet, right? I got a fireplace in my house. I bought that house literally. Shelly sent me a text message of the picture of the fire in the oven and said, do you want to buy this house? And I was like, I don't need to see any of the pictures. Buy it. It's awesome. I made a good deal. But the point is I had a plan because I personally won't live in a house that doesn't have a fireplace. If the people in Texas had that same mentality, and one of my friends who's a BOSS instructor, Boulder Outdoor Survival Schools instructor, is living in a 100-year-old house. I was like, and I messaged him, he's like, how you doing? And he's like, we're just chilling by the fire eating some deer meat. He's like, everyone else is freaking out, but I'm gonna take a nap. Because it was a non-issue, because he had a plan for a situation like that. Had a contingency plan for something that is really easy. My power goes out, I've got a generator that'll run off of propane. I'll just plug it into the propane hose that comes out of my house for natural gas that runs to the barbecuer, turn it on, run back to my fridge, go put some wood in the fireplace and take a nap. My food's not gonna thaw out, my house isn't gonna get too cold. We're good. So food for you, bags of water because they can freeze, pounds of Snickers, okay? Because if you got 2 Snickers a day, you'll get kind of sick, but you'll be okay for 3 days. If you want better stuff, MREs that are not left in the sunlight because they can blow up and get stinky. Okay.
If they're left in a cold basement, are they okay?
Yeah, they're fine. It's the sunlight. So technically, that you're not supposed to freeze them, and technically you're not supposed to overheat them. But I've eaten brown MREs, which were made in the 90s. In fact, I've got one on my shelf that's an omelet that should never be opened because it's like nuclear, biological, chemical material. Any of you were soldiers? You open that and it's like farts the foulest smell in your life because it was an omelet. Fortunately, they stopped making them. That's why I'm saving it. Okay.
What do you say to somebody who has allergies?
Don't save stuff that you're allergic to. I have a severe dairy allergy. I can't eat Snickers. So you got allergies, have allergy medicine, that kind of stuff. Okay, we're basically wrapped up. Please make sure you sign the sheet. You got questions for me, ask. I'll be here till noonish. If you get a weird question idea, come hunt me down. If you want, I have a ton of this stuff on my YouTube channel, which is TJack Survival. There's a playlist there, primarily primitive related stuff. I've got stuff on Survival Dispatch, Survivalopedia. My website's TJack Survival. And I'm in your ward. Just call me. You're like, hey, let's go make friction fires, and I'm like, woohoo, nerd, let's do it.